If you've ever dreamed of the farm life but are a city dweller like me, don't worry. I've got some productive friends who will help fulfill your desires. Red wrigglers, red worms, compost worms, vermiculture, whatever terms you use, these lovely little worms are a vital part of any healthy garden. They turn our scraps and waste into high-quality food for plants so that we can grow more plants and flowers for ourselves, giving us garden gold. There's different ways to harness their good work, and it all starts by creating a decent setup. There's lots of different varieties of manufactured worm farms out there. This is a rectangular variety with 3 levels. You can get circular versions of it. You can get wheelie bin-like ones. Alternatively, you can upcycle a couple of polystyrene boxes. You could even get a old bathtub and build a frame for it. The main thing from a location point of view is keep them out of direct sunlight or strong prevailing winds. The worms we use in farms are species that live typically in the top layers of the soil or the leaf litter, and they help to break down organic matter. Your farm needs to mimic this natural environment. Your worms need ample moisture and oxygen because they breathe through their skin. So this feeding layer, or call it the dining room, doesn't want to be saturated. It just needs to have a consistency of, say, a moist sponge. I'm lucky because I've got a plentiful supply of food scraps. Yeah, good. There's my own that I put in my benchtop tidy, but I also have my own little share waste system where about 15 houses bring me their food scraps and they drop it into this bucket. And there's all sorts of different things that people include in these scraps. And the big question still remains, what can and what can't I feed my worms? Well, the key thing is diversity. You don't want all of the one same thing because this is a living, breathing thing. You don't want it to compact and block out all the air. I'm always asked, can you put citrus in a worm farm? The answer is yes, you can, but not too much. And the other thing you can do is actually put your citrus into the freezer, and when it thaws out and goes into the worm farm, all the cells have been broken by freezing, and that way it's easier for the worms to digest it. Bear in mind that you don't want to overload your worm farm with too many scraps. Put enough out and then monitor it, and as you get a feeling for how much and how long it takes for them to eat what you put out, you can then add more as your worm numbers increase. It's important to remember that worms only have small mouths, so they can't get themselves around really big chunks of food. When you're actually chopping up scraps, chop them a little bit more, and then that way it'll be easier, but most of all quicker for the worms to digest it. The other thing to remember is worms don't actually have teeth. What they do to break food down is grind it through their stomach. And to help in that grinding process, a little scoop of garden soil from time to time will add some grit, and that grit helps crush the food and turn it into castings a lot quicker. Now, when your worm farm here is full and the worms have eaten all the scraps, what you end up with is this, which is this beautiful, rich worm castings, otherwise known as worm poo, because they've digested it and turned it into this fertilizer for your garden. Now, the simplest method that I find for harvesting the worm castings is to start to scrape layers off and give the worms a chance to dive down out of the light, just like teenagers. If you open the curtains early in the morning, they don't want it. They hide under the doona and go deeper and deeper. So what I like to do is take off the first couple of centimetres, because in that layer, there's usually eggs and babies. So I want to save those. So I just scrape that off like so, and I put it aside. into a separate container, and I'll put that back in at the end. Next, I start to scrape down around about 20 millimetres. And as I scrape, I just keep an eye out and see whether I'm coming across any worms. But at this point, I can't see any, which is good. So I've got another container here, and I'll just pick that out. And look, there's one worm. If you see one, just save it, put it in there. That's fine. And now, normally I'd wait about 10 minutes, and that way the light beaming down on here is forcing the worms further south. Then we go again. Once I reach pretty close to the bottom or where there's a lot of worms, I say, enough, take that, get this, pour that back in, and then you can start feeding this tray again, and away you go to repeat the cycle. Whether you use these worm castings around your pot plants, around your garden plants, or if you turn it into a slurry and a liquid fertilizer, either way, the benefits of all that hard work by the worms is going to be appreciated by every single one of your plants. These gorgeous wriggling red workers are creating garden magic. Follow a few simple tips and become a wise worm farmer and keep harvesting that goodness.